Very good. And I am also going to, this is going to go live. We are going to live stream it on Facebook. And so, yes, I believe I'm going to live stream on Facebook. So, am I there yet? Let's go back to our Zoom. Okay, very good. So like I said, my name is Marian Amwa, and I'm the author of Breaking Through. And our conversations over the weeks have been based on some of the chapters from the book, Culture Shock, Breaking Through as in the workplace, doing well, taking advantage of resources. We've had other series on things like breaking through in the health industry or the health space, in the IT space. But today we are very, very excited to have Professor Kojo with us, Kojo Korte with us. And I am going to, I can't see anyone, so please, I ask you to mute yourselves. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for muting yourselves. And I'll be your hostess. I'll be your facilitator. We are going to hear Professor Korte's story, his journey. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them. And then let me say this at the top. Thank you to every one of you who has provided us feedback as we have been doing these sessions, things about the light, things about the time. Yes. And so thank you very much. I always say, quoting my boss, feedback is a gift, and it's all about improving ourselves. And it's also about hearing these stories that would help us in our journey as immigrants and as workers, as mothers, as fathers, as friends. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Korte. You will hear me call him Enim sometimes. He's the same person. I'll call him Kojo and I will call him Prof. It's still the same person. So you are very, very welcome to today's session. I will ask you, Prof, to just introduce yourself. You don't really need to go into the deep deep things about the journey yet, because we'll get to that. So any fun facts about you, and then we get into your career journey.
All right. Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much, Marian, for this opportunity, and thank you for the book, Breaking Through. And I've read it from cover to cover. And over the last couple of weeks, I made this my second Bible, believe it or not. But it's a quick read. It's a good read. And I love the stories that you have in there. But today you want to hear part of my story, not the whole story, but part of the story. So I've lived in 4 different countries, and I've lived in 7 different states here in the United States. I've been in these United States for well over 50 years, and I have traveled to over 40 states. Wow. Even as far as Hawaii, but haven't made it to Alaska yet. But I got to make it there one day. Fun facts, I spent from age 10 to 14 as a child in the DC public school system. My father was a diplomat, so when I was 10, we moved here to the United States from Ghana, and I spent those years in the DC public school system. So, and I heard not too long ago that the DC public school system at one time, and probably during those times, was the worst public school system in the nation. So I say, that's my excuse. I'm a product of the worst public school system in the nation, and I was still able to make it this far in life. So, and most important fact, I'm over 60, but I have a 5-year-old. Long story. There's a story behind that, but I'm not going to tell it here. That's not what you're asking about, but it's a pleasure to be here. And also, while I have a PhD, I don't like to be called doctor. I prefer to be called simply Kojo. And I tell people it's not Kojo. It's the emphasis on the last syllable, right? It's Kojo, but they can't seem to get it. So everybody calls me Kojo, but it's Kojo. But anyway, long story short, quick story about that. if I can tell a story at this
Oh,
point.
yes. The floor is all yours.
I lived in Alabama for many years. For 11 years, I lived in Alabama working at a small college. And what I would do every summer was that I would volunteer to work at a summer camp for foster kids. And I would give up a week during the summer and go live there in the dorms and work with foster kids. So the first time I did this, I got there, they gave me a name tag that said Dr. Corte. And so I was in the dorm one evening, the first evening, and just minding my own business. And all of a sudden I hear this knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. And so I go to the door, and it's a young lady probably about 13 years old. She says, "Come with me. We need you. We need you." The story. So I put on my slippers and I go with her. She takes off. She goes through the woods, over the hills, across the river, all the way to the other side of the campus. And I'm huffing and puffing right after her, chasing after her. And so she goes into this building, and there are girls lined up on the left side of the hallway and on the right side of the hallway. And she ushers me into this room, and there's a girl on the bed, and she's having seizures. True story. So I walk in, I ran in, I go in, I look around the room full of people, I take the girl's hand. I had to do something. I take her hand and I look up at the people and say, "Did anybody call the nurse?" It's, "No, you're a doctor. That's what we called you." I said, "No, it's a PhD in economics."
Okay.
It's a PhD in economics. Anyway, so what happened is fortunately, we were able to reach the nurse. The girl didn't, nothing terrible happened to the young lady. She survived. So on that evening, I took my name tag, I crossed out the doctor, and I simply put Kojo. So from now on, just call me Kojo. So here at my institution, even the students call me Kojo. So anyway, fun facts. It wasn't too fun when I went into that room and saw that girl having seizures, but it all ended well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 You give me so much meat. Oh, that's so good. So good. So good. So
You
first of
wanted a fun
all,
fact, right? So that's the fun
yes.
fact. I
Yes.
don't know if you
Yes.
want to hear more about my journey, but I guess
Yes.
that can come next if you want to hear about
Yes.
my journey.
Yes. We'll get
Yeah,
into the
so
journey. So it's
yeah,
Kojo, not Kojo.
Kojo, not
It is
Kojo. And I hear
okay.
it all the
Good.
time. Hey, Kojo. It's Kojo.
It's
And,
Kojo.
and those, yeah,
Okay. And what does Kojo mean?
well,
Fun
it
facts.
means I was born on a Monday. So
Oh,
there are a
oh,
bunch of Kojos. Yeah,
okay. So it's
that's
nothing
indeed.
deep. It's
No,
not deep.
it's a
Just
Monday born.
Monday born.
Yeah.
Kojo. Is that right? Oh, Kojo.
Kojo, the
Kojo. Okay,
emphasis
good.
is in the
Good.
last syllable. Now, you know this. I know you're messing with me. You know
Yeah,
this.
no. I knew it's Kojo, but then yeah. So okay, great fun. So did you say you've been to how many states have you been to?
Oh, I've been to over 40 states.
Oh
I've
wow.
I've missed Alaska and the New England. Well, anywhere above Connecticut, Vermont, and New Hampshire. I haven't been that far, and I think I've missed a couple in the West, Wyoming, and maybe one or two others. But I've been to over 40 states, including Hawaii, which
Wow.
is not exactly paradise for some people, but that's a whole different story.
That's a whole different story. I'm already thinking that you're coming back. Okay, so let's get to why we are
Yeah,
here today. You are the president of a community college in
yes,
Mich
Michigan.
Michigan, Monroe, Michigan. And so I want you to, but I think I began hearing a little bit of your journey, saying that your father was
Yeah,
a diplomat and you went to school in DC, which at the time was termed, labeled as one of the worst schools. So it
yeah,
is
Washington
something to
D.C.
you.
Yeah,
Okay. So can you just share a little bit about your before? I don't say before
yeah,
and after because you're still journeying. And actually,
yes,
that is why the book is not broken through. The title of the
right.
book is Breaking Through because it's a journey. Till we
Yeah, that's a
die,
journey.
we are journeying, right?
Yeah,
So tell me
yeah,
your before and now journey when you first arrived in the
sure.
US, what you were doing, what you're doing today. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I came to the United States, believe it or not. Well, after the first 4 years, from 1970 to late 73, my family moved back to Ghana. I finished high school in Ghana. Then we moved to Senegal, Dakar, Senegal. My father was posted there as a diplomat. And so from Senegal, I came back to the United States on my own at the age of 19. And it was very different. Nothing like being sheltered, being sheltered back in the early days when we lived in DC with family. I was on my own when I came back. So I ended up living in Baltimore, Maryland. And I came here, by the way, from Senegal, Dakar, Senegal, not directly from Ghana. I lived in Baltimore, Maryland, enrolled at Morgan State University that summer. And that first summer, with a little bit of money that I had, that my dad had given me, I enrolled in summer school. Little did I realize that after summer school, I needed to, and I realized it, I needed to enroll for the fall and the spring semesters, right? So I enrolled in summer school. I quickly ran out of money. I then came back for the fall, tried to enroll for the fall. And in those days, they allowed us to put a certain amount of money down and then pay the rest later. I know a lot of institutions don't do that now. We do that here at Monroe County Community College. But so I enrolled for the fall without putting anything down. But I didn't have anywhere to live. I had a friend I had stayed with in Silver Spring, Maryland. And so I had then gone back to Baltimore, which is, if anybody is from that Delmarva area, that's probably about an hour's drive, right? So I'm back in Baltimore, nowhere to live. I went back to my old dorm, thinking I could live there. They allowed me to stay there for 2 days. And then they booted me out. So I was homeless, literally homeless. In those days, Zimbabwe was fighting for its independence. So we had these guys on campus from Zimbabwe who went around campus and they talked about comrade, comrade, comrade. So I connected with a couple of those guys. They let me sleep on their couch for a few days. And then I was able to find a place, $80 a month, about a mile from campus. And it was a decrepit, ramshackle place. And stories have been written about that when you think about my journey. So this place was rat infested. And I'm not talking about mice. I'm talking about Baltimore rats, which are probably bigger than New York rats. And these rats were everywhere. They were in the walls. They were in the bathroom when you got up to go to go to the bathroom at night. They were in the kitchen on the stove when I was trying to cook. These rats were everywhere. And the problem was that there was a leak in the basement. And so there was a sewage leak in the basement. So when you flushed the toilet, some of it escaped in the toilet, in the basement. Well, I lived there for a couple of months, $80 a month. I didn't have anywhere else to go. So the old lady who was an octogenarian, her family decided to move her out to DC. So she moves. I'm still in the house. I have nowhere to go. A couple of days after she moves, I went to campus. It was October of that year. I walked on campus. I went to campus. I went to class. I got back home. And at the door was the guy called the BG&E guy, the Baltimore Gas and Electric guy. And he was there to turn up the utilities. So he said, well, from what I know, this place is abandoned. And I've got to turn up the utilities. So what could I do? I wasn't there legally. The landlord had moved out, and I was trying to hang out there with the rats until I found some place to go. So he turns off the utilities. I go back in, and it's cold in October in that Maryland area. It's cold even here in Michigan, but anyway. And so I go in. I had a humanities exam the next day. I went to the store around the corner. I purchased a couple of candles. I went back in. But what happens when it's dark? The rats were hanging out, even when there was, even when we had light in the house, right? And now the rats were all over the place. I couldn't stay there. So I left and I went to the library on campus that evening. And I commenced to study for my humanities exam. And there's a gentleman, the security guard, who would go around before the library closed and shout, "Lights out, lights out, lights out." You think I was going to get out? No. I hid under a table until he turned off all the lights and left, closed the library and left. Well, in one of those rooms was a lamp, so I was able to study for a little bit. Then I went to sleep there in the library. The next day I got up and I went and cleaned up a little bit at a dorm across from the library. Went on, took my humanities exam, and then connected with my friends from Zimbabwe again. And they let me sleep on their couch for a few days until St. Anne's Catholic Church, a Catholic church in the ghetto in Baltimore, 22nd and Greenmount, took me in. They let me stay there for a couple of years, one meal a day, no rent, and I stayed there in that Catholic church, St. Anne's. I still, when I'm in Baltimore, I still pass by it sometimes, and it was a good experience. Nothing untoward occurred while I was there. That next month, I got a job off campus as a security guard at a warehouse on the west side of campus. I'm sorry, the west side of Baltimore. So I would journey take a couple of buses, go to class, and then journey to the other side of Baltimore. And I worked full time. There were times when I worked 16 hours straight, and sometimes when it snowed in Baltimore and the snow was up to here. Those were the days I'd have to work 24 hours. And I recall there were times when I had class at 8, trying to get on the bus to get to class on time and always being late for class. So that's part of my journey. Rats, cold, and experiencing homelessness. My first day on the job at Acme Warehouse on the west side of Baltimore, and I didn't have glasses then. I needed glasses, but I didn't realize it. And so there was a kid who was trying to come over the fence and steal stuff from the warehouse. Next thing I know, he pulls out a gun. True story, my first day on the job. He pulls out a gun and points it at me. But I couldn't tell. It was dark. I didn't realize he had a gun. And so I'm standing there, then my friend Francis, who was coming to relieve me, was coming off the dock. He saw the guy with the gun. Francis was from Cameroon. He says, "He has a gun, he has a gun." And we scampered, we ran, helter skelter. Anyway, part of the story is that it wasn't a real gun. It was a pellet gun, but still, that's part of the story, part of the journey. And it was a harrowing one to a point. But then there are good parts of this journey also. I'm in a place now where I think I'm in the twilight of my career now. I've in many while I wasn't born poor, I've gone from poverty to almost prosperity. I'm not quite I'm prosperous in spirit, but I'm not quite prosperous yet. But you talk about negotiations and some of all of that in your book too, for income and so on and so forth, for perks or what have you. We'll get to some of that, I guess, later on. But I'm in a good place now. I'm in a community that I love very much. I love waking up every day to go to work. I had a habit of coming here to the college, walking around on a Monday morning and going around and saying hello to my people. And I would say, TGIM, TGIM. Thank God it's Monday. A lot of people didn't like that. And so I stopped that. People say TGIF.
Yes.
Right. But I was going around on the Monday being excited about being back at work and saying TGIM, TGIM. Yeah. I got away from that very quickly because not everybody's excited about it. I was excited about being here. You know, my office is an extension of my home. You walk in my office, you'll see you'll see that first and foremost, I'm a Christian because of some of the symbols you see in my office. I have angels in my office. I'm an African. You see carvings here from Ghana. I'm a family man, and you can look behind me now and see pictures of my family here in my office. So my office is an extension of my home, and it reflects who I am. So I don't know if that captures where I am in my journey on that, but this is I've worked at several institutions at different positions, but I think this is the last stop for me. Small community.
Oh my goodness. Kojo. I honestly,
Kojo.
I normally take questions when we are going through. I mean, I take notes, but I haven't heard this story before. And I've
Yeah.
known Prof for over 20 years. I've never heard the story before. And I think I saw somebody put in resilience. This is
Yes.
resilience from
Resilience. Yeah.
rats, cold, homelessness, lights being turned off, and you still made it. There's hope for all of us.
Well, they say Jinyami, right? That
Me, except the Lord.
except God. Except God. Only God has brought me this far. And I've been criticized for this, but on campus, many times I wear this cross. As I walk around, I wear it all the time. And I've been criticized by individuals on campus because they say, well, he's the Christian and he wears it on his sleeve. No, I'm not going to hide it. I won't hide it. You know, I'm a Christian and I like my life to reflect that also. And I behave accordingly. I treat my people well, the employees here well. And I expect I report to a board of 7 individuals, and I expect my board to treat me well also. And we'll get to negotiations later. But
Yeah.
God's been good to me. God's been good.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. If you're just joining us, my name is Marian Amwa, and I'm the author of Breaking Through the Immigrant Handbook for Thriving in the American Workplace. And I've said it before, the tips, the resources, the stories, you can take it to Canada, you can take it to Australia, you can take it to Malawi, you can take it to London. It works everywhere. I mean, I believe they are principles that are very universal. And we are listening to Professor Kojo Enim Korte, who is the president of Monroe County Community College in
Yes.
Michigan. If you
Yeah.
have any questions, go
That's
ahead.
another Monroe Community College in New York. That's Monroe Community College. We are Monroe County Community College. So
Good. Okay. So I know that you've said bits and pieces.
yeah.
Sleeping where there was no lights, sleeping in the library,
Yeah.
uh, and then to where you are. Can you just talk a little about your professional journey?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure as an immigrant, it hasn't been all that rose. And even if you're not an immigrant, everyone has seen challenges or successes in their journey. So if you can talk about that.
Yeah. So when I started out and I went to Morgan State University, HBCU, go Bears. But anyway, so I went to Morgan in Baltimore, and when I went to Morgan, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a banker. I knew I wanted to be in business. My dad wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, and that comes later. Also, we may talk about that, but I didn't think I had the proclivity for the sciences, so I couldn't be a doctor. And I know there are real doctors on here. I'm not a real one. Just have a PhD. My name is Kojo, not Dr. Corte. But anyway, so I I went to Morgan. I was enrolled in the business school at Morgan State. I took an accounting class my first semester there, and as luck would have it, and as God would have it, I should say, I earned the highest score on the exam, 96, 98, or whatever. So Mr. Hutt, who was my accounting professor, put on my paper, you should be an accounting major. Well, so I became an accounting major. And from there on, eventually, from that point, I became a tutor. I tutored people in accounting and other business areas. And then as a tutor, well, I went from the accounting, bachelor's in accounting, to a master's in economics at the same institution. And I recall as a tutor, some of my professors who were mentors, I had good mentors. Uh, I remember a couple of my professors would come in, especially one. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was from the same country I'm from. Um, he would come in and look in the lab, the tutoring lab, look at me and say, "Here, Corte, come here. I can't teach my class at 11. And it's 9:30, right? I can't teach my class at 11. Go and teach it." What chapters? And he would say, "Well, chapter 11 and chapter 12. Yes, sir." So I'd spend that hour and a half preparing, and I would go in and I would teach my heart out. And many other TAs would go in and they simply have the students sign the roll sheet and let them go. I would go in and teach my heart out. And then people began noticing that this gentleman probably had some kind of a gift for doing this. So when so there were a couple of professors who did that with me, had me teach their classes. So when they had an adjunct position open for a part-time professor, after I got my master's, I was out for a year before I went for my doctorate. They hired me. I was a professor who was not doing well, so they hired me to teach his classes. So I had two classes. I was working with a company, Prudential, selling insurance. That's a whole different experience. And so I was teaching two classes on campus at Morgan. And as I taught these classes, I interacted with my mentors and professors on campus, and they all had this title, doctor. Well, most of them did. And I thought about it, and said, well, I want to be a doctor too. Now that I have it, I don't care to be called doctor, but that's a personal choice, right? Everybody who earns a doctorate or a PhD, certainly you deserve it, but this is my personal choice. So from that point, having taught those classes, econ, economics, and also while I was tutoring, by the way, I had a background in accounting and economics, and I could tutor the accounting, the economics, the finance, and all those areas. And so I guess that was a good way to meet girls too. So that was helpful. Whole different story. So from that point, I stayed at Morgan teaching those classes for a year, and I decided to go on to get a doctorate. And as an immigrant back in those days, there weren't a lot of scholarships for individuals like us to go on and get doctorates or PhDs. I remember applying to Maryland and other places. I was accepted at Purdue and several other places, but the least expensive place I could find, because there were no assistantships. This is the mid 80s. No assistantships, no scholarships for people like me. And so I ended up going to Mississippi State University, which was the least expensive one I could find. And I remember when I told my brother and my cousin, you may know them, that I was going to Mississippi. And I packed up everything and I headed to Mississippi. Well, I left some stuff behind, of course, but I drove to Mississippi and I didn't have a place to live. I had a car. The first night I slept in my car, I was homeless again. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had only enough money to pay for part of my tuition and a little bit I paid for a hotel the next day because I had to freshen up for orientation. Then I went in to orientation. I met some, and I had become part of a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, when I that year after grad school at Morgan. So I met some brothers on campus, and I think A Phi Alpha Phi Alpha really saved me in many ways. But I uh, I connected with the brothers to help me find a place to live, and eventually, after 3 years, I earned my doctorate, and then I moved back to without a job, moved back to Michigan. I'm sorry, to Maryland. Lived with my brother, my cousin. Got some uh, opportunities. Then to my first opportunity, almost a year later, was to move to Alabama as a professor. So then I moved to Alabama and started teaching at a small college, another HBCU, Talladega College, and I eventually became a dean and a department head dean. And then I left there after 11 years. I didn't think I would leave Talladega. I was mentoring students. I was trying to nurture students to try to get them to where I was. I thought, and back in those days, I thought every student should be an economist. So I was trying to convert all of them, all those students. But I immersed myself in my community also. I've always felt that I needed to give back to my local community, and I think that's something that all of us should do, as well as to my community overseas. But I was giving as much as I could to my local community in Talladega. And so I became the dean, the inaugural dean of the business area there. And after a few years, I moved to as a dean to another institution, HBCU Lincoln University, where I recruited hundreds of students from Africa and the Caribbean, the Caribbean to come. And then from there, I ended up going from an HBCU to a majority institution, Davenport University as a dean at a much bigger institution, and then to Chicago as a provost. And then from Chicago, I came here as the president of this institution. So it's been a long journey. My first deanship was at age 32. My presidency did not come until my early 50s. And I don't know if I can tell another quick story on that.
Go ahead. I'm really enjoying the story. And
so yeah, so when I was in Alabama as a dean, one of my VPs, and God rest his soul, Dr. Henson became president at another institution. And I recall distinctly Dr. Henson calling me after he got his presidency and calling me to come visit him. And I went there to that institution to visit with him. And I visited with him. And I remember when I went there, and I won't forget this day because it was the year that the team that's called the Commanders now, and I'm a football fan, the Washington Commanders football team was playing in the Super Bowl, which they won. And so anyway, so I went there, I visited with him. I left, I came back to Talladega, and he wanted me to be either the CFO or his chief of staff. And so I was going to be the chief of staff. And so I came back and he wanted me to give him a call back. I waited 1 week, 2 weeks, then call him back. I didn't feel comfortable about the decision. So, and it was a much larger institution than where I was. And so he calls me. He says, Corte, what's wrong with you? You could have the decency to call me back. I said, well, Dr. Henson, I'm sorry, but I think I want to remain in the classroom. I was a dean, but I was also teaching. Okay. And I chose not to take that administrative position. Had I taken it, my path to the presidency probably would have been faster and smoother, but this is what God ordained for me. And so I've eventually gotten to this point. And then I wasn't even thinking about being a college president. I wanted to be a full professor. I was doing the research, presenting papers around the country, going from here to there, trying to, I did attain my full professorship at 35, which I wanted. And I thought I had arrived when I did that. But then it appears as if I had because of my temperament, and I guess I always say this, I approach all situations with humility and respect. Humility and respect. And that's the way I treat people. And so it appears that I had a comparative advantage for administration. So eventually, I moved into the vice presidency position, and then I became chief of staff for the same. Also, the dean, the vice president, chief of staff for the same president, who would then move to another institution
Oh my
and
goodness.
move to Lincoln. And he mentored me, and that's why I am where I am now, because of mentors. I know you talk about mentorship and you tell some stories about that. So
Yeah.
this is my mentorship stories, and I try to mentor as many as I can. And I did that at Talladega, and not only immigrant students, but students who look like me, Black students. And I'll talk a little bit about my journey and my emphasis on the fact that I'm first and foremost Black before anything else. When people look at you, what do they see?
Black.
Well, I'm first and foremost Christian, and then I'm Black.
Yeah.
But, all right, but hopefully we'll get to that at some point.
Yes, we will definitely not get there because I have lots of questions. We probably will do a part two.
And I'm telling a lot of stories, but okay,
We'll
I'll
do a
minimize
part
my
two.
stories. I will minimize my stories.
No, they are great. And please welcome again. If you're just joining us, you can use the chat to ask Prof or Kojo any question that you have. He's happy to answer. But you said so many things, in the stories. I'm picking up a lot. You said when your professors asked you to teach for them, said
Yeah.
I would teach my heart out, and that is
Yes.
excellence. And
Yes.
I think I know there's a chapter in the book that talks about stand
Yes.
out and shine. Whatever
Yes.
you are doing, stand out and shine, because you never know. It opened doors for you. And I see and I hear that I can do attitude. Can do
Yes.
attitude. It doesn't matter if I have to sleep in my car, I would do that. It doesn't matter if I have to travel from Maryland to Mississippi, I would
Yeah.
do that to get me where. And that can do attitude for us is so much needed. It's also needed for the younger ones that we are trying to bring up, the first gen immigrant children who are sometimes have everything and haven't seen
Yes.
or heard some of these stories. And we need to pass on these stories that whatever you are enjoying now, somebody paid the price for it.
Somebody pay the price.
Yeah, I heard you talk about giving back to your local community.
Yes.
And I know bits and pieces of the work that you did. You recruited so many people from across Africa
Yeah.
and the Caribbean to come to school, give them the opportunity. I heard you talk about humility and respect. And then the last thing was the mentoring. Everyone needs a mentor. Do you want to
Yeah.
spend a little bit of time talking about mentorship? But somebody put in a comment that we are enjoying, and let me see. We are, we
I
are
have more
enjoying.
stories to tell. Yes,
Yeah.
that's we're enjoying the stories.
So there'll definitely be a part two, but talk to us about the mentoring.
Yeah. You say you want me to talk about the mentoring?
Yeah, and talk about your mentor. Yeah. Any one of your
Yeah.
mentors, one or two stories.
Yes. Yeah. So one of my mentors was Dr. Well, there was Dr. Henson. There was also Dr. Johnson, God rest his soul, who was became president at Talladega when I was the dean there. And so Dr. Johnson came on, African American. He had been president at Grambling. Grambling is in Louisiana, another HBCU. And he came, and I think he had heard about me. So when he came for his visit, after the interview, he came to visit the institution. He called me. Maybe I'm letting out a secret here to those who were unaware of this, but it's been so long. He called me to meet him on his way out at the airport to talk about a possible position in administration. I was a dean, but administration means you're a VP or on the cabinet on the cabinet or what have you. So he called me. I met with him. He says, "Well, we know what you've been doing here for the last few years. So we want you to be on our team. I want you to be on my team." So he came on board as the president. He appointed me to the president's cabinet as I was dean of business, and I was also the first director of institutional research, which was a cabinet position. They gave me an office in the big house, the administration building, and I also had my office in the other building where the business department was. So And I was young. I was, I think, in my late 20s. And there were those who were jealous and they called me the administration's boy wonder. Well, if you know that expression, they call Robin, who is the who is Batman's sidekick, the boy wonder.
Yeah.
But we did good work there. So Dr. Johnson recognized in me, and Dr. Henson did also, something that I did not see in myself. Sometimes our mentors see things in us that we don't see in ourselves. I didn't. I wasn't aspiring to be an administrator. I wasn't aspiring to be a college president, but he recognized something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so from that point on, I realized that perhaps I could be more than a dean. Mm-hmm. That's anything wrong with being a dean, or that's less than, but that I could be a dean and a VP and perhaps even aspire to a presidency somewhere. And I had a couple of offers before I chose this one at a community college because I am very much committed to the concept of community. My career has I did get some, with all humility I say this, some teaching awards as a teacher and some I did do quite a bit of research and publications. And my career really has been built through service to my community. That's how I built my career as an individual here and as an immigrant and a Black man here in these United States. So, two great mentors, and I continue to be mentored, even as a president. I know there are presidents in the system who've been here, who've been in their positions longer than I have. And so I look to them, and sometimes I call them to seek advice from them. I've been through some rough times here, not only as a Black man, but also as an immigrant in a community where only 6%, well, no, 5% of the individuals in this community in Monroe are Black. Okay, and I'll say this: when I was hired in 2013, there was a front page article in our local paper which posed the question, is Monroe ready for a Black president?
Wow.
Yes. Is Monroe ready for a Black president? I was in Chicago. I was leaving my position when the reporter asked me that question. So I said, well, my answer was, America has a Black president. Why not Monroe? So, and it's been 11 years. 11 years, not only survival, but thriving in this community. And we've taken the community from where it was. And I say community, I don't just say college, but we've taken the college from where it was to where it needs to, well, to beyond, not where it needs to be, to where it really, it's gone beyond where it was. Let's put it that way. In the community, it's moving forward also with some of the DEI initiatives that we have, the monthly conversations we have, the numerous events that we have on our campus to try to integrate our community more into our campus, more into the community. And what I say also is, when you are, especially when you're a leader and you're the only one, everywhere I go in this community, I'm the only one. You have to represent not only yourself, it's more than yourself. You're representing more than yourself. You're representing, in my case, my college, immigrants, and people who look like me, my people, Black people. And I heard someone say once that if you are not at the table, you will end up on the menu. And I don't want my people on the menu. So I try to be everywhere. And I've been criticized by my board for being, say, Kojo, you're everywhere. Can you be everywhere? Well, I learned that from the politicians. Show your face, right? Make your voice heard. Because I know there are a lot of my people, immigrants and Black people, who have no voice. And as a leader, a person who's been bestowed this honor, folks, especially, and I say this to all of you out there who are leaders, it's more than just about you. It's about our people and representing our people. And you have to put your best foot forward and not do anything embarrassing. So I try to stay out of trouble. I'm not running any red lights. And it's a small community. I'm not going out and getting drunk. I don't drink anyway. Um, I'm not doing any of that. But you mentioned mentorship, and I went beyond that.
Wow. So, any your story. So he's just been very humble. I visited his campus, I think last year and a half. It's a state of the art campus. I went to the gym, I saw a business center, and everywhere you go, you see his name, Professor Corte. So I said, oh, I didn't know that you were a big man, but good job, and thank you for giving back.
Some of the buildings that we've renovated since I've been here, with some support from our local.
Can you speak up a little bit? Your voice is low.
Oh yeah, those are some of the buildings that we've renovated since I've been here. When I came here, we were in dire financial straits, and we've reversed that. We're in very good financial position now. So our institution is doing well. God has blessed, and I don't take that for granted. I don't.
Fantastic. Let me ask you, I've put down community is so key. Community to build, community to support, community resources, community to give back. So I hear that clear. I mean, we could actually break it down further, but time. And then I liked what he said. He said it's more than just you. It's more than just you. You are representing, if you're a Christian, of your faith, one.
Yes.
You are representing your nation.
Yes.
You are representing your the community college or wherever you are working. They are representing so many identities. So excel. Put your best foot forward. I want to ask you one question before we go to, I think we'll only have time for 2 more questions. And if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat. And welcome. We are having a conversation, as you know, all based on, well, his stories, but breaking through the Immigrant's Handbook for Thriving in the Workplace. Talk to me just one, maybe 3-4 minutes about mentorship. And on another vein, I know everyone needs a mentor and everyone needs to be mentored. So be a mentor and be a mentee. You have been in both places. But the question I want to ask you is, have all your mentors been Africans? So can you talk a little bit about the mixed race mentoring and the benefits?
Yes. My mentors at Morgan were mostly African Americans. There was one Ghanaian, only one. There was a white professor who helped me through my dissertation. I'm sorry, my thesis at the master's level. And there were African American, and most of my mentors have been African American. The 2 presidents I mentioned, Dr. Henson and Dr. Johnson, they were African Americans. I've also had white mentors in many of my positions. My provost, when I was at Davenport, was white. So the person who mentors you doesn't have to look like you. They simply have to be in a position or have the wisdom or sagacity to provide that nurturing and mentoring to you. And so it doesn't have to be somebody who comes from where you come from, who looks like you, but are they where you aspire to be? And they can be a good mentor for you also.
Yeah, fantastic. There are so many advantages of mixed race mentoring. And then you said something like the mentor sees in us what we don't see ourselves. So it's really key that we all have mentoring. We don't have a lot of time, but I want you to speak to something, especially in the immigrants community. And I will tell you that this is not only for Africans or those from the Caribbean. I heard a story about, I'll say it quickly, in one Asian community, somebody was sharing the story that there's a ceremony that they have, and they put out a stethoscope, a law book, this, and the children will be around there. And whatever the children pick, that's what their future is going to. And so we're talking about, do they put out other things? So it's always been, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be, those traditional so that's one. I want you to talk about that. And I also would like you, if you can, to talk about the benefits of even going to a community college. If you can do that within the next 15 minutes. We don't have all the time, but let's try. And I promise
All right,
everyone
all right.
there'll be a part two.
Yeah, so in terms of careers, first, well, I want to say this before I mention careers, but we have to realize that even as immigrants, for those of us who are first generation, for the most part, just like you and me, we are raising non-immigrant children. We have to realize that for the most part, we're raising non-immigrant children. So the advice is for everyone. It's not just for immigrants. So there's nothing wrong with the hard sciences. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being a doctor or a lawyer or and I know there's some doctors on here. Nothing wrong with that. It's great. It pays well. If you have a proclivity for math, and then by all means go into the sciences. From research, the best paying majors are in engineering and the sciences. We know that. And the least paying majors are in education, early childhood education, especially. Mm-hmm. Those who take care of our bambinos, our children, make the least. You would think it's sort of paradoxical, right? You would think they would be making decent money, but unfortunately, so there are numerous technical fields that individuals can go into. Here at my college, for example, community college, we have welding. I have students who come in here, they take one welding class, and immediately they get scooped up by industry. Mm-hmm. And they get well-paying, they get good-paying jobs. Mm-hmm. Jobs that pay very well. The challenge is it doesn't help with our completion rates. This person is here to complete a degree. But if they can earn a certificate in the process, and that certificates are what I call certificates, degrees, any kind of credential, I call credentials of economic value. Whatever you do, get a credential of economic value. Don't go into a field if you're happy with it. If you're happy with the field, all well and good. Okay, if you want to go through life living from hand to mouth, that's fine. But find a field that you have an interest in that pays well. And you talk about negotiations here. So some of this is about money. Okay, I'm an economist, and I tell my students all the time, and I've written about this also. What's the purpose of going to college? The purpose of going to college or getting an education is so you can get a job, right? So you can take care of you and yours, and hopefully extend out to the community. And so community colleges, we nurture, very much like the HBCUs. We have areas that the typical four-year institutions don't have. We have the welding, machining. And then entrepreneurship is an area that one can certainly explore. If, I'm a failed entrepreneur. Well, not if, but I'm a failed entrepreneur. I've tried so many businesses, didn't do well. And so if you have that gift of entrepreneurship, it's an area that you can certainly go into. But community colleges have the resources. They're less expensive. You save money. Send your children to this community college for the first couple of years. And after that, they can go anywhere. They want to go to Harvard, Maryland, they can go there. My baby girl, she did 2 years at a community college, and then she went on to Maryland. And she works there now, doing very, very well at University of Maryland, College Park. She went on to College Park. So, but anyway, I don't know if that answers your question on that. I'm trying to piece parts together here in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that answers helping us all to get out of that mentality of every child has to be a doctor or a lawyer, or there are so many paths
that you love. And as an immigrant, here's if I had any advice, maybe you're going to ask me that. This is a nation of immigrants. You're an immigrant, you belong here. Our DEI plan here at the college is called belonging. I want every student who comes here to belong. And every immigrant who comes to these United States belongs. So don't go through these United States half-stepping as if you don't belong. And Marian talks about you. Go in, be bold, be brave, go in, negotiate. but do your work as hard as you can. Do your best. You know, I heard this somewhere. It's not original, but it says, work as if everything depends on you. Pray as if everything depends on God. That's the way you need to go through life. Even when I was a stocker, stocking shelves in a store, I tried to stock as many shelves as I could that night while others were going off in the corner when the supervisor wasn't around and going to snooze. Said, Kojo, stop that. You know, you're making us look bad. Well, I'm here to work. Right? Anyway, so
Kojo, stop that. I like that. Whoa, 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 whoa. So, I mean, I think definitely. Please show Kojo some love in the chat. Just say thank you. You've been great. Let's just do two more questions. I like to end on time. Just take one of the chapters. What was your favorite chapter from
my
Breaking
favorite
Through?
chapter. Yes, my favorite chapter, and I'll do this in 30 seconds, is negotiations. I've got the book here. I've read it. It was my second Bible. But anyway, negotiations. And you've got to negotiate. I've recently renegotiated my contract, and I'm still negotiating. You know, it's not just about the money, but it's about the perks too. You know, what are the perquisites that you get? What about the perks? You know, so retirement bonus, what have you, retention bonus. So if you're here, for example, I have in my contract now, if I'm here for another 3 years, that's a chunk of money that I get, which I negotiated. You know, so that's the golden handcuffs, right? They call it. So,
Great. This thing officially ends at 12:15, but I will try to leave everyone. So negotiation, we did a session about a month ago, mastering negotiations. You can find it on YouTube. Please, please, if I may ask you, one ask of you is to sign on to my YouTube channel. It's called Breaking Through Immigrant Voices. Breaking Through Immigrant Voices. Please sign on. I don't know whether it's been put in the chat. And I'll be happy. And if you can also sign on Facebook, we have a Facebook page. I need to have about 100 people to be able to live stream there directly. It's also called Breaking Through Immigrant Voices Breaking Through. I believe that Kwesi will put it in the chat for us. Thank you so much, Professor Forte. I want you to pattern words, any words of wisdom, younger self. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat, but any pattern words before we leave. I know this is Labor Weekend, and so we can leave maybe 5 minutes earlier. So any pattern words. But before I give you the last word, thank you so much. You are coming back. I feel like every chapter in the book, you have something to say. You have several stories. Thank you for accepting to come. And for those of you who joined us today, thank you so much. Prof, take it away.
All right. So I mentioned earlier that if you can hear me clearly now,
yes,
that it is a nation of immigrants. You belong, and you're here in these United States, the land flowing with milk and honey. You need to take advantage of all the resources available to you. And again, you need to think about more than yourself. Put God first in everything that you do. If you're a Christian, or I mean, if you're a deist, if you believe in God. If not, that's a whole different issue. So my apologies if you're not. Stay away from toxic people. And I've been around some of those people. I've been around some toxic individuals. Those people will drag you down. Okay. And then find mentors who are where you aspire to be. And, you know, I wanted to tell another quick story, but I think I'm out of time. But
go ahead. End with the story.
When Dr. Hansen, my mentor, who had invited me to be his chief of staff, and he told his board members that he was asking me to be his chief of staff. He told me that one of the questions someone asked him was, "So Kojo Forte, who is this person?" So, well, he's from Africa. And the person said, "Really? You couldn't get anybody other than African to be your chief of staff?" That's another reason why I did not go there. I really didn't want to go, but I did not go there. but he hadn't met me, the individual. But regardless of the situation, when people meet you, you are representing more than yourself. So act accordingly, live accordingly, and reach for your dreams.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kojo. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is Monroe County Community College ready for a Black president? Yes. Yes. And
11 years.
How many years?
11.
11 years. And you
11
made
years.
all of us proud. And if folks
you.
want to reach out to you, where can they reach out to you for any questions, follow up?
Yes. K Quarte at Monroe. Maybe I can put it in the chat, right? K Quarte at monroeccc.edu. But they can find me on the
website.
On the website.
Yes, you can find him on the website. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. Thank you. I see Abdi says, what a fabulous session. Mercy had put in something. Emma had put in something. Everybody, you are coming back, please.
I'm very accessible. You reach out to me, I will respond to you. Okay. If you want to send your children to Monroe County Community College, we're here. They can take classes online. And I've also recruited quite a few. I even have, believe it or not, just last point, I have a student I just recruited from Ghana who didn't have anywhere to stay. He lives in my house now.
Wow.
Yes.
What an example. So
he lives in my house now.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. For those of you in America and Canada, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. We are on next week, same time with Bianca. Bianca is repeat, so I will send out the flyer. But thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And you can find all kinds of things in the chat. You can find the book online, Amazon. Thank you. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.
All right.